Welcome to Who Gives a Fuck. Hi, I'm Grant. You might know me from such amazing things as, I don't know, Welcome to Flake. Boys and girls, little campers, guess what we're talking about today? Today we are talking about the great thing known as working for Perkins. I don't know if you've ever worked for Perkins, but boy howdy does it suck. Working at Walmart was probably the worst job I've ever had, but working at Perkins would probably be the second worst job I've ever had. I was a line cook, and what that means is I stood in front of grills and threw shit on them occasionally, and then microwaved everything else. I don't know, every time I came home, I'd have grease on my pants, you know? It would just be like a whole blanket of grease down my jeans, and it gives you like zits and shit on your legs. It's gross. Don't work at Perkins. I was a cook for a long time, and then eventually I got promoted to trainer. Now, I don't know if you've ever been a trainer at any company, but most people are like, okay, here you go, here's a manual, get to work, we're gonna train this new guy, we're gonna give him a good month to get acclimated. No, Perkins, what I did was I trained people how to use a grill, how to put food on a grill, and how to microwave things, and then management threw them on a shift by themselves. Holy fuck, management was literally the most incompetent, slightly less than Walmart, but still pretty up there, you know? Like, holy shit, no wonder they're going bankrupt. Train your employees, that's all I can say, you know? Train them, that's all you need, is to basically give them the tools to do their job. And Perkins couldn't even do that. You know, I actually think I might still have my trainer's pin, hold on. Okay, yeah, I found it. Holy shit, look at that. Perkins Grant Trainer, serving guests since 2015, and these 3 stars mean I completed my training, which means I became a certified trainer. A lot of people who started out with us left not long after starting. Like, we couldn't hold down people for the life of us. It was terrible. I used to wear this on my hat. And that hat is also caked in grease, don't ask. I was a trainer, so I trained people. I tried to train people with the tools they gave me. Before I left, there was literally nobody there except me and like 2 other people that had stayed more than a year. I worked there from 2015 to 2016. I worked like 13 months about. Working at Perkins was soul crushing, but not the same as Walmart. Where Walmart was soul crushing because they didn't treat you like human beings, Perkins was soul crushing because everything sucked. And there is a difference. You see, Walmart, your managers will spit on you, and then at Perkins, the management just had their thumbs up their asses every night and just sat in the office doing jack shit. We only ever had like 1 cook at a time, with the sole exception being sometimes for dinner rush we might have 2, you know. My first 6 months at Perkins was a 3rd shift, and let me tell you, I hated it. I hated every second of it, and I didn't get paid enough. Perkins was a horrible, different beast to Walmart, but let's put this in the timology timograph. Scare House, Jimmy John's, Perkins, Walmart, new photography job. I don't know about you, but if you know anything about retail, it sure carries a lot over into food and the service industry. Fast food is pretty shitty, but working at a restaurant, holy crap. Have you ever seen Waiting? It's like that, only, you know, funny. Oh, he took a shot at Waiting, my favorite movie from 2004, whatever. I love Waiting. It's so real! Real talk though, if you've ever seen Waiting, it's 110% accurate. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but basically it just shows you exactly what happens at a restaurant in all aspects. It's amazing. It's fucking weird to see, you know? The cooks who will fuck with your food if you fuck with them, or whine, or bitch, that's real. I personally didn't ever fuck with anyone's food, but I've seen people spit in food. I've seen people fucking burn food on purpose and shit, throw shit on the floor and then throw it in a fryer. I've seen that, and it is disgusting. People do that all the fucking time. All the time. Servers talking shit about your stupid customer attitudes and your shitty tips that you barely tipped. That's real. That's too real. That is bona fide, certified, real. If you don't tip your servers, you're a piece of shit. Just letting you know. Being 20 and working at Perkins was so crushing and terrible, sure. But knowing that these poor teenagers who had no other skills at all were working there and getting their asses ripped off, that hurt. That hurt my feelings. I felt bad about that. Holy shit. I don't know if you've ever eaten at a Perkins, but the food's terrible, you know? It's just god-awful food. It's cheap for what it is. We've got this value menu and you can get a sunrise burger. It's basically a cheeseburger with an egg on it for $8.50. Now, let me tell you something. The regular cheeseburger on the regular menu is $11. So basically, if you ever wanted a cheaper burger at Perkins, just get the sunrise burger and put the egg on the side. It's $2.50 cheaper and you get a free egg. I used to eat those all the fucking time. Fuck yeah. Over hard, you know? Crack that yolk, let that shit sizzle, give that some of that flavor, throw it on a fucking burger. Have you ever tasted egg on a burger? It's goddamn delicious. If you've ever had an omelet with hamburger meat, 1, you're fucking weird, but 2, you're also correct. That is a thing you should try. My standard go-tos were the pancakes for about the first month, because then I got sick of them. And then there was the burgers. That's all I ate. Pancakes and burgers, and then occasionally mozzarella sticks when we overcooked them. Allegedly. On accident. We also had these weird burrito, like breakfast burrito wrap things that we used to cook. It's like tater tots, eggs, a tortilla. To anyone who was bitching in the comments of my Walmart video, you have obviously never worked retail. I appreciate the feedback, as misguided as it is, but you know, just saying. If you've ever worked at Perkins, I bet you can relate to how shitty it was, the working environment, the fucking shitty managers. It's pretty widely spread. Like, no matter what Perkins you go to, you're gonna find shitty managers, asshole cooks, and dishwashers who stand around and literally do nothing. But yeah, Perkins was not fun. Perkins was bad, obviously. Management was a joke, but that's the case for most high school jobs. I don't know if you knew this, but retail, service, and food are the worst jobs you could ever have, with retail being number 1, followed by food, followed by service. Let me tell you something. If you've ever worked at a Walmart and you saw my Walmart video, chances are you probably agreed with it. If you've never worked at a Walmart, chances are it's really fucking obvious you've never worked at a Walmart. I hate to sound condescending, but the truth is you just kind of have to work at a food job or a retail job to understand just how bad it is. But you work at Perkins and you walk in, you get it. If you're a cook, you understand why every cook is such an asshole. And it's usually because of the waitresses. Don't mind me, I just gotta wash my goddamn hands. I'm probably really out of focus. Hi, Mom. I don't want to sound condescending or like I know more than you. I'm saying you really do need to be in their position to understand just how bad it is. I can't think of a single day that I walked home happy. Like, I'm lucky the job I have right now as a photographer, I love it. I walk home with a big fucking grin on my face. It could be the shittiest day of the year. I still had fun, I still like it, and I love that about my current job. Perkins, I can't imagine anybody walking home happy. When I quit, it was basically my 2 weeks, but given the chance that I will literally never ever go back there, let me tell you how I wanted to quit. Maybe this will be a bit cathartic for anybody who's ever wanted to quit their shitty food job. Okay. Step 1, walk into the manager's office. Act 1, the build-up. Hello, I am here to tell you a thing. I wanted to tell you a thing. What did you want to tell me? You've been working pretty good. I appreciate you. I wanted to tell you that you're a piece of shit. Go fuck yourself. Act 2, the fallout. Well, I'm sorry to hear you leave. Act 3. Walking out in slow motion, high-fiving everybody. I quit basically by giving my 2 weeks and I said, hey, here's my 2 weeks, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. It was just that simple. I don't really have a story. Working at Perkins sucked for a lot of reasons, obviously. I've explained a few already, but here's a few more. I don't know if you've ever eaten at Perkins, but I'm about to ruin it for you. Now, I'm not pointing any fingers and I'm not saying this was at our location, because if I did, that'd be, That'd be some legal trouble. One of the prep cooks was a fucking idiot, and then one of the other prep cooks was disgusting. Basically, they would always scratch their fucking flaky ass skin over food. I once opened a little container of brown gravy and found skin flakes on the top of it. I went to the manager and I said, "This is fucking disgusting. Fix it." Told you I was gonna ruin it for you. Don't come at me all mad. Like, I was like basically the one guy who cared about cleanliness in the workplace, who would try to enforce, you know, cleaning the grease traps and fucking cleaning the fryers on time and shit. Let's talk about the time the weirdo at 2 in the morning on third shift came in, ordered a burger, and asked if he could pay me in weed. No. No, you can't pay me with weed. Management would not like that. Let me tell you, working third shift at a restaurant, you meet all the weirdest people. I had a meth head come up to me once, ask if he could have some cigarettes, and I said, no. No, you can't. I can't really say much about Perkins, honestly. Like, I worked there for 13 months, sure, but it was mostly just the same boring shit day after day. Bad management, bad waitresses, bad food, bad everything. Bad customers, bad fucking location, bad pay, bad... But no, it was mostly just, hey, this sucks. And that's pretty much all I can tell you. But tell you what, I might know somebody who has a bit of a worse experience than I did.
Hello, I'm the nostalgia critic. I remember it so you don't have to. Oh, hell yeah,
Hi, Grant Newkirk. This is so unexpected.
Hi, yes, I was making a video about Perkins, and I'm wondering if you would also like to share your experiences at Perkins.
You want me to do a review of Perkins?
Tell me about Perkins.
Well, that sounds great. I'm just gonna take a quick hit if you got the Pepsi already.
I can drink vodka, it's just terrible.
I started right after you quit.
That's true.
I worked at Perkins for, I think I managed to make it 4 months, but it might have been 3. To say it in a very simple terms, Perkins is easily the worst job I've ever had. I've had a lot of bad jobs, Grant. I've cleaned rotten milk out of glass bottles on a farm for less than minimum wage. Worked at every type of restaurant imaginable. The only job that even comes close to Perkins is Vanelli's, truthfully. Don't eat at Vanelli's.
What did you do at Perkins?
That's a complicated question. On paper, my job was cook. After 11 days, I was the most senior employee. I was the only cook 99% of the time. I was the dishwasher. I was the prep cook. I cleaned everything, pretty much. I mean, God knows the waitresses weren't. I'm sorry, there were some nice ones. I mean,
There was a few, yeah.
I liked nice. She'd always say I was like a son to her. I broke a lot of things when I was angry. At a certain point, I realized that I was borderline unfireable and started vaping inside so much that you could probably put that on my job description. I fed the birds a lot, and by that I mean whenever I got mad, I'd throw eggs on the roof. If I was really angry, I'd just throw them at the wall outside and...
Oh no, Kurt.
Hi, buddy.
Dude, this popcorn's gonna be stinky, man. I accidentally overburnt it, so I was playing with the catch.
Oh, Kurt, you're gonna knock over my shit.
No! No!
Yep, here it is.
Curtis, you're gonna knock over my shit.
I probably won't. I don't know what's worse, Connor shuffling through his popcorn bag or Curtis climbing up the walls. But yeah, realistically, my job was do literally everything at all times, and no one else did anything ever, except complain to me about how nothing was getting done. I was considered a good employee for lasting like 3 months. And every time a new employee would come, they'd work there for a week and then quit. There was one kid I trained in. Him and his mom started at the same time. His mom was a waitress and he was a cook. His mom said they weren't allowed to quit until they had stolen enough silverware and plates to make a whole new set. And then as soon as they had enough silverware and plates, they both quit on the same day and just disappeared. I don't know how many plates they stole, but I would assume at least like 8. 99% of the stuff you get at Perkins is just microwaved. And the other 1% is eggs. Frozen deep fried chicken, frozen deep fried fries, microwaved hamburgers, microwave steaks. You were only allowed to cook beef well done because Perkins was so scared of lawsuits. The only type of fish we had was cheap frozen salmon and tilapia, which I don't know how many have had tilapia, but tilapia is a nasty old person fish. There's also a infamous prep cook named Scratchy who had horrible eczema, and Scratchy would just sit there all day. She'd be cutting fresh melon, delicious fresh melon. You'd see these little skin flakes just like wrinkling down like a fresh snowfall onto the melon. Pretty much the only thing I liked. Pretty much the only thing I'd eat at Perkins. Perkins did a bullshit meal policy, alright?
Yeah.
Their meal policy for employees was you got 50% off if you ate while you were on the clock, but you never got breaks. So you never got 50% off. I talk shit about Grandma's a lot, but for every shift you worked at Grandma's, you got a free meal. Yeah. Perkins' meal policy was such bullshit. How I Quit is the ending of the story. That's the climax. This is the rising action we're getting to. This is why I quit, and then we get to the explosive finale, you know? What's the best part of the job? At a certain point, I realized I had a lot of freedom at Perkins because they were so scared of losing me that everyone kind of turned a blind eye to me breaking things or egging the place or vaping inside. You know, the pies were okay. We didn't make the pies or nothing. They were frozen pies, but the customers were, they tended towards old, and they also usually tended towards not understanding what Perkins was. People would return shit all the time. Everything was microwaved. People would be like, my chicken fingers are dry, and I'd be like, there's nothing I can do about it. They're microwaved. People would complain that I wasn't allowed to cook them rare steaks, and then I'd tell the waitresses to explain that Perkins' policy is that you can only get it well done. They'd get angrier. I did often get complaints where the waitresses would come back and say the customer says the food sucks, and I'd say, okay, just keep cooking, because I had 200 tickets to cook and I was alone. Yeah. I didn't really interact with the customers, thankfully. I'm sure I'd be a lot more miserable if I did. The place was fucking filthy. There's the general manager, I think her name was an imbecile. She treated her employees like shit. I told her to give me a raise multiple times because I was sick of training people even though I'd only been there for 2 weeks, and she just said, fill out this form, but you have to fill it out at work, and also you're the only cook, so you're never gonna have time to fill it out. Hi, baby boy. For the most part, the waitresses weren't like bad people. They were just kind of like stuck in the same terrible job that I was. So I can understand their frustration, and some of them were really bad. There's a couple of them that would just scream at me for everything. Yeah. But most of them were pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. As far as the other cooks, the only other cook, pretty much the only one that stuck around for any length of time was this old black guy named. He would come to work every day with a duffel bag full of beer. He loved WWE and prostitutes. He would come to work already drunk, and he'd go to the back every like 20-30 minutes and grab another beer and shotgun it in the bathroom. And basically he told me 2 types of stories. He would go to every live WWE event that came to Minnesota, and his other story was always about prostitutes. He told me a story once where he was 2 months late on rent, and he was fucking a prostitute in his house, and his landlord came, and his landlord was like, you owe me rent. And he's like, how about instead of giving you rent, you and me DP this prostitute? His landlord said yes. He told me about all the prostitutes he knew in Minneapolis. He gave me prostitutes' numbers, which I would promptly throw in the trash. He was a funny guy. I liked him. He was one of my favorites.
I like how the only thing on that bookshelf is a Schoolboy Q album.
No, there's a little rock fountain too. It's kind of why I'm mad though. It's signed by Schoolboy Q.
Yeah, then those are my fucking Serenity rocks.
The whole place as a whole was pretty dirty. I mean, there was kind of like grease everywhere because no one knew how to like do anything. The fryo would burn, so the fryo would have to be taken out every day. There was horrible amounts of mold growing under like the oven, but also like sometimes it'd creep around to the top and you'd have to scrape it off. The microwaves always had like exploded shit in them because we just microwaved everything, so the microwaves would get dirtier than anything else. We also only had one dishwasher.
Who never washed dishes.
He, I called him Igor, I don't know what his real name was. He had like a hunchback and he like creeped around. He only worked on Fridays and Saturdays, I think. And he was very bad at dishes, so I'd usually have to help him anyway. I think that about covers everything.
Anything you hated?
Things I hated. I hated management. I hated most of my coworkers. I hated being the only cook. I hated being the most senior cook after less than 2 weeks. I hated the food. I thought it was fucking disgusting.
Why do you think people kept quitting?
Because Perkins, they're so incompetent that they made everyone hate the place in a fucking week. The pay was shit. You worked alone. All the waitresses screamed at you because you were the only cook and everything was getting fucked up because there was no one to help you and you were fucking confused because you'd only worked there for 5 days and they had you working alone and everyone else just quit and left and the place is fucking... Perkins is dirty and stinky and you get burned all the time and everything's a fucking mess and a disaster and it takes about 10 seconds to realize that management is stupid as shit and there's not even good food to steal. Their employee fucking meal discounts, the worst ripoff I've ever seen, and the only thing you wanted to do when you were at Perkins was just slit your wrists and bleed out on the floor so that someone else had to clean it up for the first time because you're the only one who does any of the fucking cleaning at that goddamn restaurant even though you're cooking. It was just a shitty place to work. It wasn't fun, it was dirty. Yeah, there was no reason to work there. You could find better pay and better work environment and better employees at any other restaurant in town if that's the route you wanted to go down. When I first started there was probably like 5 cooks working there when I first started and all of them quit for Applebee's because Applebee's offered $1 more and was slightly less horrible.
He likes tummy rubs from people he trusts, but he trusts nobody.
This video's gonna be an hour, and we're gonna play it at the Forest Lake Theater.
Anyway, let's finish this Perkins story.
What happened? Why'd you quit?
The grand finale. Here's why I quit. Forest Lake's power grid. There's apparently at least 2 power grids in Forest Lake. I don't know what the layout is. Perkins is on one, and every other restaurant in town is on the other. So it's the dead of winter, probably early December, maybe late November, and there's this huge blizzard. All the power goes out in town. Only restaurant with power? Perkins. So I was there with right before this blizzard hit at like 7. She was one of the managers. She was a massive. She said, "Aiden, I'm cutting," and I said, "Don't. It's a Friday night. I'm gonna need him." And she said, "I'm cutting him," and sent home. So it was me alone. This blizzard hits. Power goes out in every restaurant in town except for Perkins. I had tickets stacked 3 deep on the rail. The rail's this 6-foot bar. I had 3 layers of tickets. Customers kept coming in. I was begging the waitresses to stop taking customers because I was so far behind. I was goddamn near 40 minutes behind on tickets. I went to and I begged her. I got on my hands and knees. I said, "I'll suck your tiny shrimpy little I'll do fucking anything if you just help cook for 5 minutes." And she said, "I'm too busy." Turned around, went into the office, and started posting on Facebook. So every time a new ticket came in, I got angrier and angrier. At first, I started reaching into the drawer. I'd go into the drawer, I'd take out an egg, and I'd throw it straight at the wall every time a new ticket came in. I eventually ran out of eggs. So instead of eggs, every time a ticket came in, I would pick up a plate. We had these big ceramic plates, and I'd spike it on the floor and it would explode. And keep in mind, I was also supposed to do all the dishes as well as all this cooking. And I was expected to stay there until 4 a.m. in a blizzard doing dishes. And so every time a new ticket came in, I'd spike another plate on the floor until I had spiked probably 40. And came back and said, "What are all these plates doing on the floor? What are all these shattered plates?" And I laughed and I said, "I tripped." And she said, "You tripped?" And I said, "Yes. Do you want to fire me?" And she turned around and said, "No." And then I continued throwing plates on the ground, and eventually she came back and said, "Aiden, you're too angry, you need to go home." And I said, "Fine, fuck you," and I left. And then, the next day, the general manager called me and said, "Aiden, we're not gonna fire you if you come back in and keep working." So to the goodness of my heart, my tiny little heart, I came in, and when I got there, they pulled the rug out from under me. I said, "You guys actually still want me to work here?" And the general manager said, "No, not really." And then I said, "Okay," and I left. Never to see Perkins again. Do you think I could go to bars pretending to be A$AP Rock and get free drinks?
Yeah.
I'd be like, "I'm A$AP Rock." You can find me at NTMA Productions. We do lots of things. We talk about movies, and we're working on a review of every Nostalgia Critic video ever. My throat really hurts after that. I took 3 big shots.
All right, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
That was pretty great, huh? Thanks for watching. Glad you watched to the end, because now I get to plug my channel. Go ahead, leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down, however you felt. You know, whatever. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you are subscribed and didn't watch this video, please unsubscribe. If you'd like, consider supporting me on Patreon. It's mostly just funneling towards these videos that I do in my free time. More money on Patreon means I'll be able to make more videos like this, you know, a lot less sporadically, a lot more consistently. If you like these kinds of videos, go ahead, consider supporting me on Patreon. It'll help me make videos like this in the future. Thank you so much to NTMA Productions for helping out with this video, making their little guest appearance. Here's a link to their channel. Go ahead, consider subscribing. They make movie reviews and talk about movies a lot, and I occasionally show up. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. You're a great person. Go ahead, smile today. You've earned it.
Turn it off. Turn it off!
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. You remember